Hello and welcome to another episode of All Fired Up with Brandon Ramsey. I am in a different location today, as you can probably tell. I'm a little bit messier behind me. I'm in my actual day job office here for a little bit. Didn't have time to run home for today's episode, but we are going to get into a few different things today on today's episode. Obviously, here off the top, first and foremost, thank you all for tuning in to the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel. This episode of All Fired Up with Brandon Ramsey. Please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a comment, like the post, share it, all that good stuff. All the things you're supposed to say as a YouTuber. You can go follow me on Twitter at BRamseyKSR. You can find all kinds of Kentucky content and national college basketball content there as well. Also have a podcast that you can find on Spotify or wherever you do listen to the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show. That is available, as I said, on Spotify or any of your other podcast feeds. So today we have a few things on the docket that we need to talk about. Tuesday night was a great night across the college basketball scene. A lot going on. I believe there were, I said this yesterday evening, but there were 33 games on Tuesday night. 1/3 of them, so 11 of the games were KenPom top 100 matchups, and then several more, like 5 or 6 more, were power conference matchups where one team was really good, one team was maybe like 115th or something in KenPom. Some solid mid-major matchups. Like, it was not a big slate, but it was a really, really good slate of college basketball games last night, coming off of obviously the college football national championship game on Monday. We got back into the college basketball swing of things on Tuesday, and then a loaded slate again tonight. But we are going to focus on a couple things. First and foremost, number 1 and number 2 in the country lost on Tuesday night. We had the Purdue Boilermakers going down at Nebraska. I think that was 88-70. Let me find the score here. 88-72 in that one. And then you also had number 2 Houston losing on the road to Iowa State in a much lower scoring game. That one was 57-52. Why can I not find these games? Where is it? There we go. 57-53. Iowa State beat Houston in that one. I was talking to one of my friends before the Nebraska-Purdue game, and I'm not going to sit here and, because I didn't say it publicly or anything, I'm not going to sit here and say I told you so that Nebraska was going to beat Purdue. But I said I think there were some things where the Cornhuskers matched up pretty well, and that they were a type of team. This was a type of game that Purdue certainly could lose. You had Rink Mast, the 5-man for Nebraska, who is going to pull Zach Edey away from the basket, and we know that those are historically the teams that can give the Boilermakers some problems. Mast came in. I think he made 2 threes last night, if I'm not mistaken, but he was shooting not a great percentage, but certainly is able to make them. He was 2 of 5 from 3 last night. He's now what is it here? He is 16 for 51. So he was, 14 for 46. So, shooting around 30% from 3-point range, which isn't great, but for a 5-man that can pull Zach Edey away from the basket, it certainly gives you a different dynamic there offensively if you're Coach Hoiberg and Nebraska. And he came through knocking in 2 in the first half as Nebraska made that, whatever it was, like a 14-2 or something, a big run at the end of the first half to sort of pull away from Purdue. You also had Keisei Tomenga, who had an excellent game for the Cornhuskers. He finished with 19 points, hit 5 threes. And again, that 1-2 matchup, when you have a 5-man that can shoot, and then you have a guard who in this game ended up being the best guard on the court. Now, we've talked a lot about Braden Smith for the Boilermakers here. Like, he has played at honestly an All-American level this season for the Boilermakers, and it's been a big reason why they were able to get to number 1 in the country. Fletcher Lawyer has been up and down, and it was very much down on Tuesday night. You get 10 points from Lance Jones, but he's also 2 of 8 from 3, which makes it tough. And as I said, Keisei Tomenga, he was the best guard on the floor in this game, and we've seen that in the past. When Purdue's guards aren't elite, they can get beat. They were really, really good for much of last year until they weren't. They've been really, really good for most of this year until they weren't necessarily on Tuesday night. Now, this is a road game against a good team, and Nebraska's had success this year. They're 13-3. They're now 3-2 in the Big Ten. They're going to win a lot of home games this season, especially in the Big Ten. And Purdue, they're going to lose some road games. I mean, it's just who they are. They're going to turn the ball over some. They're going to have a night where they don't shoot it as great. Now, I mean, they still hit 13 threes. So, like, you have to give a lot of credit to Nebraska for this one. When they go out and score 88 against this Purdue defense, Zach Edey has 15 points in this game, but he only gets 10 shots off. Like, I think that's a win for Nebraska. They were able to make some things hard for him and honestly make it hard on the guards to get him the ball, which was very impressive in this one. And it comes out with an 88-72 win. It'll be interesting to see how far the Boilermakers fall. They play at Iowa, or I'm sorry, that's Nebraska on Saturday. Oh man, I'm all screwed up here now. Purdue is at home against Penn State on Saturday. So that's certainly one they should take care of business in and get back in the win column. So that'll put them at 15-2, 4-2 in the Big Ten going into the next AP poll coming out on Monday. I mean, I can't imagine that they're going to fall out of the top 5. Obviously, all this depends on what else happens around college basketball, but because they still like they have such a good resume. I know now they've lost, but they've lost on the road to Nebraska. That one wasn't. I mean, they kind of got boat raced a little bit, especially down the stretch. At the end of the first half and at the end of the second half by Nebraska. And then they have a 4-point loss at Northwestern in overtime. So I'm not ringing the alarm bells for the Boilermakers fans. I think Purdue is still, honestly, I think they might still be the best team in the country. Losses happen, especially on the road in your league. But you saw the formula that exists for beating Purdue, having a guard who can outplay their guards, having a 5-man that can stretch the floor and pull Zach Edey away from the basket. Those are the things that we know. Like that was the formula for beating Purdue last year. They had the same players for the most part. It's the formula for beating them this year. Nebraska executed that formula very well. Honestly, it was a big reason why Northwestern was able to beat them. Boo Buie, best player on the floor in that game. So where they end up in the AP poll, too soon to tell. There's no reason to speculate that today, but they're obviously going to fall a few spots almost regardless of what happens through the end of the week. Houston was number 2. They were the other top 5 team that went down, or I should say top 2 team that went down on Tuesday night. This one was a much closer game, but that wasn't always true as the Cougars fell behind 14-0. I'm a sucker, when some of my friends call me public Brandon, I was on the public side of things here. Houston had been so dominant. They had been so dominant defensively that I think Iowa State is really darn good defensively. They're at home. I think they're a good team. Things are going well there this season for the Cyclones, but I just didn't believe in their ability to score against Houston. Kind of think I was right about that. Again, they scored 57 points. 14 of those came in like the first 4 minutes of the game. I think it was 14-0 with like 14-20 to go in the first half. So first 5.5 minutes of the game, they score 14 of their points. The rest of the way, they score, 43 points over the next 34 minutes. You just can't expect Houston to have very many shooting nights like this. Like, do I think they're a juggernaut offensively? No, I don't. But Jamal Shedd and LJ Cryer in this game, 2 for 14. Yeah, 2 for 14 from 3. That ain't happening very often, folks. Like, LJ Cryer this season is shooting, before last night, he was essentially a 40% three-point shooter. Jamal Shedd, yeah, he's going to have some nights like this, but like he's still shooting 33% after going 1 for 8, shooting 35+% before this on about a make a game. So one of the reasons why I really was buying stock in the Cougars this year is I think they have better guards than normal. I think they have more offensive firepower than normal, in large part because I think LJ Cryer is an All-American level guard. He just played bad last night. It happens, especially against Iowa State, especially on the road. Like, that's a really, really good defensive team. That place was going to be rocking last night, and it was. But I will say, I really thought once Houston erased that 14-0 run, I think it got tied like in the 40s. Houston had a lead relatively late. I think it was 51-50 with maybe like 3.5 minutes to go or something like that. And at that point, I thought, okay, like Houston's got it figured out. They finally got themselves ahead. They're going to end up winning this game by 5 points. They're going to escape Ames with a victory. So again, like as we gave credit to Nebraska, you have to give credit to Iowa State. I hope that the national perspective of this isn't just like, man, Purdue lost, man, Houston lost. Like, Nebraska and Iowa State beat these teams last night, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for what they did, both offense or in Nebraska's case offensively, in Iowa State's case much more defensively. So yes, we had the top two teams in the country go down last night. It's kind of quickly running through some of the other big games on the slate. You had Baylor take down BYU 81-72. That was a back and forth game for much. I didn't get the chance to watch a ton of that one, but Jalen Bridges has 25 points in that game. Jacoby Walker has 16 points, the freshman for the Bears. You get 15 off the bench for Langston Love. Again, Coach Scott Drew, this plethora of guards, a lot of talent there in the backcourt. And offensively, once again, they are one of the best teams in the country. Defensively, they were good enough. They were good enough against BYU, and I continue to sell stock in BYU. They're now 0-2 to begin Big 12 play. And to me, it's like, all right, I know I forget. I'll need to go back like where I picked them in the Big 12 on the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show Big 12 preview, but it was bottom 2, I think. I don't think I was out on a limb on that. I think that was pretty much the national consensus. This is a bottom 2-3 team in the Big 12 going into this year. Should we be shocked that the team that we picked at the bottom of the Big 12 is 0-2 to start Big 12 play, regardless of what they did in their relatively bad? For some reason, nobody wants to talk about that. Like, they didn't play anybody in non-conference play. We just anointed them as this darling team because Ken Palm likes them a lot, which didn't really make a whole lot of sense either, just because they played a bunch of bad teams and beat the crap out of them. We all of a sudden decided that the Cougars are this top 5, top 10 team in the country. No, they're not. And we're going to see that as they get into Big 10 play. They're not done losing in Big 12 play. It's going to be a long season there. And I'm not happy about that. I mean, Coach Mark Pope's a Kentucky guy. I think he's doing a great job. I think BYU is going to be fine in the Big 12, and they're probably going to do better than I thought and a lot of us thought this year in the league, but still going to be a struggle. Like, don't be surprised if they go under 500 in the Big 12. Somebody has to, and I think they're probably one of the weaker teams in the league. You had Duke go on the road and boat race Pittsburgh in one. Kyle Filipowski goes off for 26 points and 10 rebounds and a 75-53 win over Pittsburgh. Boise State defeats Colorado State, who has now lost 2 in a row in Mountain West play after their excellent non-conference slate, where they actually did beat some good teams. The Rams now have faltered back-to-back nights, albeit on the road to Utah State and Boise State, 2 of the other best teams in the loaded Mountain West this season. Just throughout the year, that is going to be a conference race to watch. It's going to be very, very competitive in the top 5 or 6, and you're going to have at least 5 or so teams competing for legitimate NCAA tournament spots. So, like, all of these games, all these data points matter a lot in the Mountain West, because here's 2 losses. Yeah, they're on the road to good teams, but like, somebody's not going to make it in the Mountain West, and Colorado State's not off to a great start to be one of the teams that's on the right side of things. Texas goes on the road in Big 12 play. Yes, a game at Cincinnati is now a Big 12 game. They go on the road and beat the Bearcats 74-73. Dylan Disu has 33 points in this one, shooting 4 of 10 from three-point range. Not much you can do when Disu's scoring 33 like that. Max Abesmith has 15 points, the game winner for the Longhorns there as well. New Mexico goes down again in Mountain West play at UNLV, takes them down 83-53 or 83-73. Excuse me. That's not a great loss. Not a great loss for the Lobos, who now have lost 2 of their last 3, including 1 at Colorado State. A lot of cannibalism here in the Mountain West Conference. Auburn, they take care of business at home against Texas A&M, 66-55 over the Aggies. As I mentioned with BYU, I'm anti A&M. Kentucky has to go down there to College Station on Saturday, and I might change my tune a little bit for that one. But again, Aggies score 55 points. I think Auburn's very good defensively, but you're not going to score, or you're not going to win many points when you score 55. Let me try that again. You're not going to win many games when you score 55 points. Rutgers, speaking of not scoring very many points, Rutgers 66, Indiana 57. Hoosiers fans not happy here in the state of Indiana. Offense continues to struggle mightily. Go on the road and lay an egg there in, is that Piscataway? Yeah, Piscataway, New Jersey. Well, why did that confuse me? I don't know. But the Hoosiers, they go 7 for 26 from 3-point range. Even worse, I mean, this is staggering. 4 for 15 from the free throw line. 4 for 15. They only had 4 guys attempt free throws. Khalil Ware, 2 for 6. Malik Renew, 0 for 2. Trey Galloway, 0 for 2. Mackenzie Mbako, 2 for 5. That ain't good. You are not going to win many games. They turn it over 18 times. And this continues to be the story of this Hoosiers team. Turnovers, missed shots. Bad combination for the offense. Put up 57 points. That'll get you beat on the road in the Big Ten. They go down to the Scarlet Knights, 66-57. Alabama only up 1 at the half against South Carolina. Finally put the Gamecocks in their place a little bit, defeating them 74-47 in that SEC matchup. All right. For those of you that have listened this long, this is probably what you came here to hear me talk about, and that is the Kentucky Wildcats. We're going to close the show, again, as I always say, the show has my name in it, so I get to talk about what I want to talk about, and we are going to end talking about the Kentucky Wildcats. And I'm going to just get a few things off my chest to the Big Blue Nation. Kentucky beats Missouri 90-77. As I always say, I don't just make these things up. I predicted 91-77. I have to give myself some flowers for that one. Both SEC score predictions for me now have been like extraordinarily close. Missed the Florida game by just a couple points. Obviously, just 1 point off of the Missouri one. I had said on Twitter at BRamseyKSR, wrote it in my post on KentuckySportsRadio.com. This spot concerned me a little bit for Missouri. Now, admittedly, like, we're all friends here. I kind of think Missouri stinks. I don't think their players are very good. I don't think they're an SEC caliber group of talent, to be honest. I think they will get 12th, 13th in the SEC, probably. Let's call it 11th through 13th. Vanderbilt's going to get 14th. Missouri's going to finish 11th, 12th, or 13th in the Southeastern Conference. I don't think they're very good. I was worried about the spot. You have an emotional road win in Gainesville. You know you're about to go on the road and play Texas A&M and College Station on Saturday. You come home to Rupp Arena and you're playing a lesser opponent. It stands to reason that you're going to have just a natural human relaxation a little bit. You feel like, well, we'll be fine in this one. Came out, both teams like gangbusters. I mean, we're just putting points up left and right. Points are flying all over the board. Kentucky settles in a little bit, gets up 35-21, and you feel like, all right, we are on the way to a rout. 35-21, I wrote this down, 9:54 to go in the first half. What do the next 3 minutes or so entail? 10-0 run by Missouri. Frustrating, get back in it. Kentucky ends up going up. They were up 8 at the half, I believe. 5. It was 47-42. So now it's like, well, darn, like we played 20 minutes and still a game. That's not really what I want to talk about. Kentucky wins the game 90-77. Here is my address to my friends in Big Blue Nation. And I realize, like, I don't mean this in any sort of way that, like, my point of view is better than the other person. But, like, I view games differently than the average fan. And again, not in a better way. That's not what I'm saying. Because of my coaching background, some of my fandom has been ruined. I care about the result, and that's almost it. Like, I don't really care about how we get there. I just want to win. I don't care if I have fun. I just want to win the games and then move on to the next one. That's just how it is. That's how I look at the games. I'll worry about how things look in between the games. For the 40 minutes of a basketball game, I just want to win, and then I'll worry about stuff in between, and then I want to win again. The fact that so many Kentucky fans at this point, Kentucky's won 6 straight games, 2-0 to start Southeastern Conference play, ranked 6th in the country with a chance to move up if you win on Saturday, 12-2 now overall, one of the best offenses in college basketball. And what is the conversation today on Twitter, on the message boards, among Kentucky fans? The defense stinks. That's all we can talk. It's not all we can talk about. I mean, I think people are enjoying this team. I think people are giving Coach Calipari credit. They're giving the staff credit. They're giving the players credit. They really like the players, and that deserves to be said. But then, I almost anything that I say on Twitter then is, well, what about the defense? What about the defense? And I just can't imagine. I chime in the chat if you feel like this and help me wrap my head around the thought process of watching the team that you cheer for play a basketball game, watching that team score 90 points, watching that team win an SEC game. And then your takeaway is the defense stinks. I do not care about Kentucky's defense right now. Kentucky is scoring 90 points a game. They're second in the country in scoring. I think it's like 90.7 points per game. We're only behind Arizona by like a point. Until there's a game where we need the defense to win it for us, like if we go down to College Station, I texted this in our floppy action group chat with Zach Gagan and Stephen Peak. If we go down to College Station, let's say we score 71 points and we lose like 74-71 because we can't stay in front of the ball. Wade Taylor goes off. We give up 14 offensive rebounds and it's just a whole thing. Then we can really we'll dive in to the defense and we will address every single stinking issue there is. And I still address all the issues. I mean, I'll have to watch the tape going up on KSR here shortly. You can read that. I'll have a whole section talking about some defensive breakdowns. In probably an hour or so, I'm going to have a full Twitter thread with probably 20 videos, 8 of which will probably be defensive breakdowns. We're going to talk about it. It's an issue. It's real. You're not wrong that you think the defense isn't very good. I think it's better than you probably give it credit for. I think it's, as I keep saying, I think it's good enough. But no, it's not great. We're not going to sit down and grind some game out like Tennessee or Virginia or, Houston, Iowa State. No, we're not going to do that. But that's okay because we're so much better offensively than those teams. I act like it's my quote. I'm sure I'm not the first person to ever say it, but go score 90. Nothing else matters. Until we lose a game because we have an off night offensively. Like right now, we're having off nights offensively, and we're scoring 90 points against Missouri. That's what an off night looks like right now. We turned it over 13 times uncharacteristically. We shot 7 for 26, 7 for 23 from 3-point range. It's an off night for Kentucky. Scored 90 points. Don't care about the defense. Not interested in talking about it, to be honest. I'm not interested in talking about it as I spend 8 minutes of my own show talking about it. All right. Yeah, fair enough. But I just don't understand how that's the takeaway for so many people, that they just want to harp on the defensive issues when to this point they just haven't mattered. And I'm a big believer that all sports, but we're talking about college basketball here, college basketball games exist in a vacuum. I don't think that giving up some points to Missouri means that we're going to give up points on Saturday to Texas A&M. Look, I mean, let's even just look at these last two games. Against Florida, down the stretch, what did we do in the final 3 minutes when we needed to get stops? Kentucky got stops. I don't think many people realize this. And if you say it on Twitter, I can guarantee you, because it's happened. When you say what I'm about to say, people are just going to tell you, well, Missouri missed shots. Do you realize Missouri scored a field goal with 10 minutes and 20 seconds to go in the second half? Do you realize when they scored their next 2-point basket or 3-point basket, their next field goal, non-free throw, 40 seconds to go in the game? They essentially went 10 minutes without a field goal. In the final 10 minutes and 20 seconds of the game, they scored 15 points. If Kentucky holds teams to 15 points in 10-minute stretches, I will personally, right now, I don't know, we're working downtown here in Richmond, Indiana, about 2 blocks that way. I'm not good with directions, but if you go that way, in like 2 blocks, you can go to Circle E, and I can have John Emmerich print you off a bunch of T-shirts that say Kentucky is the national champions, and that will be like that. It's going to happen if Kentucky gets up 15 points in a 10-minute stretch, and if you hold teams for 10 minutes without field goal. Yeah, Missouri missed some shots. Is the goal to beat Missouri? No, like that they're not going to matter come March. They're not going to be playing in the NCAA tournament. Every team we play, even like the 14 seed in the first round, is going to be better than Missouri, most likely. But the point is, Kentucky has gotten stops now in conference games in 2 straight contests when they needed to get stops. So until that stops happening, or until we stop scoring 90 points a game, not worried about the defense. All right. That's a good all fired up segment because I was getting a little fired up. Tonight, let's just quickly run through the games. Tennessee at Mississippi State. That'll be a good one in the SEC. Wisconsin at Ohio State. Oklahoma at TCU. Connecticut at Xavier out in the Big East. Clemson at Virginia Tech. North Carolina at NC State. Florida at Ole Miss. Providence at St. John's. Indiana State and Drake. Watch that game. 8 o'clock tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern time. That'll be a game that might decide the Missouri Valley. Probably some at-large bid implications potentially there as well, but certainly some conference champion implications. Indiana State at Drake tonight. Definitely one of the games to watch. Kansas is at Central Florida. Arkansas at Georgia. Washington State at USC. Boston College at Syracuse. Try to do the top 100 matchups. Butler at Marquette. That looks like it's it. All right. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. Next week, I should be back in my normal home studio. Thanks for putting up with this backdrop. This is where I sell some insurance at. So thank you all for tuning in to the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show or the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel. All fired up with Brandon Ramsey is what this show is. You can please share it with your friends. Literally share it on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. Whatever you may do, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show podcast feed. Another podcast going up Friday morning. Follow me on Twitter at BRamseyKSR, and let's enjoy another night of college hoops. Thanks for being here.